This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Ever wondered how you could turn your side hustle into a full-time gig and spend more time together?
Hi, I'm Vicki, a #1 best-selling author.
And I'm John, a retired Los Angeles police officer. Welcome to Dig the Well, where we help couples navigate the world of business.
We've been married for 35 years, and because we built a successful side business, John retired 9 years earlier than he originally planned from the Los Angeles Police Department after 25 years on the job. Now we spend more time together, and we want to help couples like you do the same.
Join us as we help you overcome common obstacles, and we show you how to make extra income without sacrificing family time.
Ready to dig deep and build your well? Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Dig the Well. This time we're doing a special edition of Dig the Well. It's not at our house, as you can tell, right? Unless our house is a winery. So we're up in wine country, up in NorCal. So we're in the Sonoma Valley, and we have a very, very special guest. She's the owner, operator of Optima Wines here in right outside of Healdsburg, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And her name is Nicol Duffy. Welcome to Dig the Well.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So let me ask you, because this is, I've heard and read so many different stories of people who own wineries, and every single one of them is interesting. It's like a long journey. What was your journey? Why a winery?
Well, my husband was making wine as a child, and he lived up in Oregon. And one day his dad said, we can go get some grapes and make some wine. And he said it was the best thing that he had made. So he declared himself wanting to go to UC Davis when he was just a freshman in high school, and obviously made it into Davis. And so it was kind of that passion between art and mechanics. He's a great mechanic as well, like can do a lot of things with his hands.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like it'd go hand in hand, so to speak. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Now, how long was he at school then at UC Davis?
4 years. He got an enology degree. He was one of the very first classes of enology at UC Davis.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And then so you guys have been in the winemaking business an awful long time, right?
My husband, this will be his 48th harvest.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We started the winery 41 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So a long time.
So walk me through that. How does it go from basically what looks like a dead piece of wood, right? In the when it's dormant,
Mm-hmm.
the vines aren't, there's no foliage on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes from that to grapes, and then it turns into some like spectacular wine. How does it all come about?
How does it all come about? Well, interesting. A vine itself determines how many grapes it's going to push out a year in advance. So, even though we might have a very wet winter, that doesn't necessarily mean that we will have a lot of grapes per vine, because it goes off the prior year.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole process after you guys decide to harvest, and I'm sure there's a lot that goes into when you harvest, right?
Correct.
It has to do with probably like the sugar content and whatnot.
And the pHs.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we walk all the vineyards and we pull berries from all different clusters throughout the entire vineyard. And that's called a vineyard sample. And then we crush it up and we put it through like a little machine that's a refractometer.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells us what the sugar is. And then obviously we check all the other, does it have acid, those kinds of components.
Right.
But after this long of being in business, you just know. You just learn your vineyard. So you just know. We do test it, but we can basically call it now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll bet you guys have this figured out. And then once you harvest, the grapes go, what's the process at that point?
Do you want to talk red or white?
Red.
Okay. My favorite too. So the grapes come in to the winery very early in the morning. We always pick late at night because you want your grapes to be very cold. Otherwise, you're playing catch up. So they come in about 6 in the morning, and we typically will crush it. We just stem it, crush it, put it into the tank, and we call it cold fermenting. So, or I'm sorry, back up. Cold soaking, where it sits on the skins, because all juice of grapes is actually white. It's the skin that gives its color. And so we'll do that for about 24 to 48 hours, depending on the variety. And then once we're finished with that, we add the yeast and it starts fermentation. So fermentation, you turn sugar into alcohol. And we pump it over several times, where we basically take the top of the grapes and pull them through the tank. And, it just is constantly kind of beating it up to get more color out of it. And then what happens next after it's done fermenting, the lighter reds will then get pressed. Big Cabernets will go into what we call extended a maceration, where it actually is done fermenting. All the alcohol is there. It sits on the skins, and we only lightly dust it with its juice. We don't beat it up. We just sprinkle a little bit of white on it, or wine on it. And that breaks down the tannins in a Cabernet so that the tannins are not so in your face.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it gets pressed, goes into barrel, and then the real work happens.
And then how long is it going to be in the barrel?
Depending on the wine, but Zinfandels, 16 to 18 months. Cabernets, anywhere from 24 to 36 months, depending on, that's the great thing about the wine industry, is every winemaker is completely different, and what barrel they use and all kinds of things. It's just, it's art.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen that there's different types of oak. And then how much are any of your barrels, or do you guys char the barrels, the oak barrels, before the wine goes in?
So barrels, we use all French oak in the winery, and they get charred at the barrel company. So we're a medium toast mostly on most of our wines, and but there are various toasts.
I tell you, there's such a science to this. It's a lot of finesse, but it's amazing how much science there is involved in winemaking. So we've tried making wine at home, not in the bathtub, right? So one of my buddies that I used to work with, he had this idea. He said, "Hey, let's make wine. It's not that difficult, right? You get the kits, kind of a thing."
Yeah.
Right? So we did that, and we ended up getting the little bottle, little cork press bottle. The whole deal. We did the whole thing. And the wine wasn't bad. It wasn't great.
You didn't have to make salad dressing out of it.
Right. It was, let's say the first one wasn't that good, but the other ones were kind of palatable. And then they were it was fun to do. And it was more or less, we just wanted to do that and just learn a little bit about the process. And then we realized very quickly that we'll leave it up to the professionals to do. And then another buddy of mine, another old partner of mine, decided he wanted to make beer. And that's a lot. That was a lot of work. So not into the beer making. I made one thing of beer. Remember, our kids got me for Father's Day a beer making kit. It was an absolute disaster. That just went down the drain.
Did it bubble over?
No, it didn't. It hardly bubbled at all.
Oh.
That was the other part. It was kind of flat. So anyways, I'm not going to try that anymore. But your wines are spectacular. I remember the first time we were at this winery, Vicki and I were here. It was just this past December, wasn't it, Vic? She's in the background. She's the roadie today. And then we were at a different winery, and the one next door was Kokomo, very good wines. And they highly recommended us to stop over here at Optima. And that's when we met Mike and Nicole, and we tried their wine, and it is amazing. So if you guys are if anyone's up in this area, and you should come up here, you've got to stop in and see them. How would they find you?
Well, we are online at optimawinery.com, and we're in the Dry Creek Valley, and we always accept walk-ins. What's that, Duffy?
Yeah, Vicky grabbed a bottle so you can see.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing what you guys do. So, how did you and Mike meet?
That's a funny story. So I was born and raised in Santa Rosa, which is literally 18 miles south of here. And I was a widow and I had an 11-year-old son. And it was time for me to buy a house. And my parents said, you can't buy here, and here in Santa Rosa. And I had heard about a housing development in Healdsburg, came up here and bought my first home. And my son's only requirement was he wanted to try out for the comp soccer team. So we tried out, he made it, and we're traveling around playing soccer. And a parent had come up to me and asked me, I heard you're a widow. Yes. And they said, well, the coach became a widow about a year ago, and he had 3 boys. So he could use some tips. You can imagine a man with 3 boys, like running his own business. Like, that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I went up to him and I said, hey, I've been through this. I can help you. And we were traveling home one night from Eureka, which is way up north. And I invited him over for a glass of wine. Now, before I finish this story, I knew he owned a winery. I knew he was a winemaker, but I did not drink wine. So I didn't really care that he owned a winery because everybody in Healdsburg is in the wine business.
Yeah.
So I kind of was nervous. I went to the little local wine shop and I said, give me your best Chardonnay. Because if you don't drink, you start at Chardonnay, right? So that's where I was. And when he came over, I pulled out the bottle and he had a big smile on his face. And I thought to myself, well, he must like it, right? And he goes, who told you? And I said, who told me what? And he goes, that's my winery. I make that wine.
Oh my gosh.
Out of all the wines. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Right? And I said, well, let me taste it. And I tasted it. And I said, everybody is in the wine business. I was kind of flirting, joking. And I said, everybody here in Healdsburg is in the wine business. And I'm an accountant. That's not fun. So I need to marry you so I can get in. And he asked me, he goes, I have one question. He said, what? And he goes, do you drink red wine? I said, I don't drink. And he said, when you grow up and drink red wine, I'll marry you. So 2.5 years later, it was our petit sirah that made me fall in love with wine. And I got married and quit my day job and landed on the cellar floor learning everything about the wine business. Wow. Mm-hmm.
And you figure probably, if you look back in your past, you would never have thought you would end up in this industry.
No.
Yet here you are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I'm so thankful.
How cool is that? How things change so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the business side of running a winery, how difficult is that?
It's becoming more and more difficult. In the 80s, it was fairly easy. Our wines would sell out in less than 6 months. So you didn't really need to worry about all the things that you have to worry about today. I think it's because distribution is a lot smaller and there's so many more wineries.
Yeah, we've noticed that too. It seems like there's wineries everywhere.
Yeah. So, what once was people would call you and beg you to carry your wine. Now the reverse is happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, do you supply your wines at restaurants? Would we find them there?
Restaurants and local wine shops. We are not in big box stores.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the restaurants, are they all local restaurants or some of them are outside of the area?
Most are outside of the state.
Oh, really?
Believe it or not. When my husband started in 1984, there was, 25 wineries in Sonoma County, all trying to fight the space. And so he thought, well, I'll go outside of California. And he really hit up the Midwest and the East Coast. And so we're very strong in those markets. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So if for folks that don't know, like where Sonoma is, like everyone knows of Napa, right? Napa, California. So that's the next valley over.
Right.
Sonoma runs parallel with Napa, but we've fallen in love with the wines here and the people here in this valley. Nothing wrong with Napa whatsoever.
Yeah.
But we've just found lately that my wife and I, Vicki and I, we end up here, we end up in the Sonoma Valley, and we just go to the wineries in this area. The other nice thing is Sonoma has an airport.
Yeah.
Right. Napa does not.
Right. Right.
And the other thing too is for those of you all that like NASCAR, there's a racetrack here in Sonoma.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot to do out here. And the weather is absolutely beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
What is it? Mid 70s?
Yeah, today it is.
Yeah, it's just been beautiful.
My husband started his career in Napa. And so I often have asked him, do you wish you had started the winery in Napa? Because he would have been, one of the pioneers there. And he said, no. And I was kind of surprised by that. But he said, Napa is very serious business. It's the $100 poker table. It's, where we're more the $20 poker table. We don't have the big chateaus that, we need to price our wines into. And, we don't have the ego, hate to say that, but we don't have the ego that Napa does. You'll meet the owners over here. We're just more down to earth.
Yeah.
We're just more down to earth.
Yeah.
We're what Napa was, 60 years ago.
Yeah. That's so true, because when we've gone through Napa and we stop at the wineries and we're looking at the overhead that some of these have, and I'm thinking, it's not, the operation is so large and these beautiful, beautiful buildings they're in. And a lot of them are
gorgeous
pre-prohibition era type buildings. And they're absolutely gorgeous on these massive grounds. And I'm thinking, good grief, this is just a big corporation here. Yeah. And it's fun. Like you said, we get to meet owners, we talk, we sit down, share wine with people who are actually working the winery. And it's really nice. We love it here.
Well, thank you.
So do you have anything else? I'm kind of running out of wine questions.
Running out of wine questions, huh? Let's see. You want me to give you a little history of wine?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a gentleman named Andrei Chelychev who he escaped Russia. He has a fascinating biography, but he escaped Russia and he went to the premier college in Europe, in France. And Georges de la Tour at BV brought him over after Prohibition. And he basically taught all the pioneers in Napa after Prohibition, Mondavi and Gergich and all the big names, and taught them how to make wine. Because we were making wine, for churches during Prohibition. And it was, according to Andre, it was terrible. So he really taught us a lot of techniques that he had learned. And if I were to say two people that really put California on the map, would be Andrei Chelychev and then Robert Mondavi's ego, who was shouted from the rooftops, "Look at us." So, we still carry forward many of the things that he has taught. My husband actually trained under him after leaving Napa for about 12 years and fell in love with Cabernet. And anyone who loves history of wine should really check out his biography because it's amazing.
Wow, that's interesting. And when you mentioned his name, I've never heard his name before.
That's because there's not a lot of old timers left.
So we didn't talk about white wine so much.
Yeah.
And you guys have some great whites, because we had some the last time we tried, which was yesterday, and they were really good.
Well, thank you. We got away from the Chardonnay business, and we make a dry Gewürztraminer. And I absolutely love that. A lot of people shy away from Gewürztraminer because they think it's sweet, because California kind of ruined Gewürztraminer. We make it Alsatian style, so more French. and it is a beautiful food-friendly wine. And then we make a Maya's blend, which is my little granddaughter, who is now 9, and it's a Sauv Blanc Picpoul. And Picpoul is a Rhone varietal, so very, very food-friendly. But if you want to talk about the winemaking, it's kind of easier to make white wine.
Is it?
Yeah, literally comes in the winery, cold stabilized. You throw it in the press, doesn't get crushed or anything. You throw it in the press and you press it off. And then it ferments on, in the juice you throw in the yeast and whatnot. So it's a lot easier process to make white wine. And that's why it comes out faster. It doesn't, necessarily, it's either stainless steel or barrel fermented, those kinds of things. So maybe you should have started with white wine when you were making wine.
Know, right? But we're just not we're not fans of white. I'm trying to develop a palate so I be more well-rounded. And I've been trying to drink whites a little more here and there, but I still like the reds.
Yeah.
There's just so much more to a red wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something I was thinking. Naming the wines.
Yeah.
Now, you guys, I noticed you have some interesting names to your wines.
Are you talking about Maya and Madison? Yeah. So we just came out with a Bordeaux blend, which is 5 different grapes. So it has Cabernet, Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec in it. So it's beautiful. And that little bottle's name is Madison, and that's my 7-year-old granddaughter. But she was upset that her sister had a wine. And typically my husband said, well, I can't just make her, a nice white. She's the second child, and oftentimes that second child has a little bit more grit. And so he wanted to make a little bit bigger and bolder wine. So he went with red, and she'll actually be able to drink it when she's 21 versus Maya, So we're excited about that. And then we make PMZ, which is a Petit Merlot and Zin blend. And then we make a CMP, which is Cab Merlot Petit Verdot blend. And how we came up with those 2 names, you want the honest truth? We co-fermented both of those, and he wrote on the barrels CMP, PMZ to differentiate them from the cabs and zins and petit syrahs and those that we make. So, yeah, that's it. That's it.
So, how many grandkids do you have?
I have 3.
3. So you have 2 that you've named 2 wines after.
Yes.
Right?
And then we have a little boy.
And
we have a little grandson, and we think he deserves a tequila or something, Yeah. The 3rd one is, woo.
Yeah.
Right? They're a wrecking ball. So we need a tequila or a bourbon or something.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe do like a bourbon barrel aged something.
Cabernet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be for him.
We sell our barrels, ironically, for spirits and breweries buy our barrels.
Yeah. I'll bet. Because I've seen a lot of that where they're aging them in red wine barrels. Yeah, it just makes sense. It complements one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's go do the reverse, right? Take their bourbon barrel and put some cab in it.
Yeah. I'll try it.
All right.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. I'm glad that we had this opportunity to learn about the wine business.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John.
And, thinking back on it, would you do anything differently? Because I know this is not a typical business. And you've talked about, how the winemaking itself there's so much to it. Then you've got the business side of it, which is difficult. Would you do anything different if you had to do over again?
Gosh, I've been thinking since you started talking, and I'm not sure I would. I mean, I love this business. Our passion is in it. I've never woken up and said I don't want to go to work. And if you can find that, then you're successful, right? Because I woke up every day as an accountant not wanting to go to work.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate.
Yeah. There's so much wisdom in that because, like they say, you can, no matter what you do, if you love what you do, it's never work.
Right.
And that's true with this. It's a passion. And yeah, I can see that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's the way it was for me when I was going to work. And it was to the point where it wasn't the same job that I signed up for in the 90s. And things had changed so much. I wasn't really enjoying it so much anymore.
Mhm.
And then Vicki and I have had home businesses, from the very beginning. And so I just focused more on our home-based business. And then I'm so much happier.
Right.
It's
You work a lot more,
yeah,
but it's not the same kind of work where,
right. It's yours and
It's
you're working
yours.
for your dreams, not someone else's.
Right.
So yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Well, anyways, thank you so much, Nicole. It was such a pleasure being here. And then again, if anyone's up in Northern California, and if you come up to the Sonoma Valley, which you should, look up Optima Wines. You can find them online and come up to their beautiful tasting room up here and meet Nicole.
Yes.
And Mike is sometimes here.
Yeah. Sometimes Mike comes in. Yes.
Yeah.
He prefers the cellar. He's kind of an introvert and I'm an extrovert. So, it works great.
So anyways, come up here, meet them, share some wine with them, and you guys won't be sorry. So thanks for joining us
Thank
on
you.
Dig the Well. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on Dig the Well.
We hope you feel empowered and ready to take on new challenges.
Remember, if we can do it, so can you. Keep learning, keep believing, and going after your dreams.
And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs a little inspiration or maybe a nudge in the right direction.
Help us grow this community of go-getters. Together, we can achieve greatness and get back to family.
Thanks for listening, and let's keep digging the well.